everybody, it's T Falcon Napier. Welcome to the Oracle of the Self. This is coaching session number 39. We've got a few things to cover before we get into the core material, picking up where we left off last time around on the nature of change. Got a couple of questions thrown my way. Edie's not on the call yet, but we'll go ahead and I'll read her question to everyone, and then we can kind of explore this. So, I was just thinking about the rubber band where tension to change takes us back, like losing weight, gaining back, etc. Okay, yes, but is it raising tension where we are motivated and take action, buy, sell, or whatever? So don't know exactly what she's referring to, but it got me thinking about a couple of things I thought I'd set the stage for and then throw your way. And again, you have to ignore the labels they've put on these things. I wanted to take the time, I could just mask these. The diagram is correct. The words don't mean anything. If instead we wanted to look in this from a change management perspective, on the far right, we would have whatever the outcome is we're going to. Although we haven't talked about this in the nature of change because it simply isn't part of the nature of change. You guys know that this is where we're looking at that green step. What is our desired outcome? What's our new way of doing things? And then if we look over here on the far left, this is the current way of doing things. Sometimes they'll say the previous way of doing things or the old way of doing things. However you want to think about it is fine. Obviously, you can do whatever you feel like doing with this diagram. It helps illustrate a whole lot of dynamics. Nevertheless, this is the old way of doing things, and this is the new way of doing things. So this is where I was or where I am, and this is where I want to be. Now, we talked before about there being envisioned two giant rubber bands. And at this moment in time, this character is at equilibrium. If you're at equilibrium, then the amount of tension that is pulling you towards your desired outcome and the amount of tension that is holding you connected to the old way of doing things is equal. And so the thought that you've made no progress is wrong. Certainly, there's an equilibrium. You've moved towards this, but that also means that you're never going to have everything you had, and you're never going to get everything you want to get. So, the question I think that Edie is asking is, how do we finally get to where we want to go? And so that's what I wanted to throw your guys' way. So and we do know, obviously, again, this is just review from last time around, as we do move more and more in the direction of our desired outcome, its tension actually lessens. Yeah, thoughts about that?
I think that's why it's important to work with this idea of tension in and of itself, because you mentioned the word motivation.
Yes.
And motivation, if you look at the underlying processes, if you will, that are involved with it, it's a process. It's not simply an act. So it's like you hear some people say, well, I'm not motivated to do something, but what they're talking about feeling. And a lot of times the action itself, can create the mood that you want. So that's not what motivation is about. It's literally a process. Like in other words, you can build that bridge.
Yeah.
And you build that bridge by taking these smaller, consistent steps towards where you want to go.
Yeah, I would say that everything you've said is just true. And there is another set of behaviors that has to happen if you actually want to get to your desired outcome. Anyone want to throw out a theory?
You definitely have to have direction. You have to be clear on where you actually want to go.
Yeah, we need to do a thorough job when we were defining that desired outcome. So, obviously in the actual curriculum. Oh, Edie's joining in. Hey, Edie, we're actually kind of chatting about the email question you sent over to me. So,
okay.
We're not quite to the question. Yeah, we're just kind of refreshing what we did last time around. So yeah, cool. This is my point of the whole thing is that in order for the creative tension, scratch that, forget these words. In order for the tension about reaching your vision, about how much you want this, your desired outcome, that rubber band is going to have to be dramatically stronger
Hmm.
or shorter or whatever to maintain its win in the tug of war. If it doesn't get stronger, then how else can it overcome the connection that someone has to their prior way of doing things?
Right. See, that's what I'm trying to convey. I'm not doing a very good job articulating it, but like you can manufacture, I guess, that kind of tension that you need so that
In
the
the moment.
challenge, can kind of move you forward
Right,
and
right, right.
not necessarily, derail you per se.
Yep. Now let me throw out a little quote that comes, I think, later in this nature change program. When we start talking about tension, I want you guys to all kind of remember this from your training and really, really lock it in. One cannot create sustainable tension where it does not by nature already exist.
Right.
I can create temporary tension, make no mistake about it. In the moment, I can get just about anyone to do just about anything if I employ the right, I'm going to use the word motivation, but think about mob movies when I'm talking about motivation. So we can force anybody to do anything if we want to do that. But that's not what we're really talking about when we're talking about change. We want sustainable change. And in order for sustainable change to happen, we have to make sure that the tension is very genuine. And it is true, we can keep increasing and increasing what do we say, the depth of connection and passion we feel towards achieving that desired outcome. But I will suggest to you that it will be far, far easier to get to the desired outcome if I do something about the tension on this side. So, what do you think I need to do with the tension on this side if I really want to get to my desired outcome?
You need to let go.
You need to let go. I need to break this rubber band. I need to be Cortez and burn the ships. I need to basically say this old way of doing things, which, by the way, the reason why you're connected to it is because, and you can tell me right or wrong, it still satisfies you. It's comfortable for you. It worked. Yeah, it might not have been the best thing intellectually. You might have been able to do something better, faster, wiser, whatever. But the truth is, there's a comfort in that, right?
Absolutely. See, in neuroscience, people call this synaptic pruning. So
Okay.
when you're just like you're pruning a plant for growth, right? So like when you're shifting identities and the behavior follows the identity, and you do that consistently, that gets into the sustainability that you're talking about. Now you're creating new, stronger pathways that detaches you from the one that's present. Because all behaviors literally are strong synaptic connections. And
Absolutely.
so that's why you can't just have a good intention and think that you can just motivate your way.
Right.
You'll bounce back. It's too
You
easy
will
when you're
bounce
conditioned.
back. And anyone who's tried any kind of behavioral change has probably tried and failed, tried and made some good progress, but ultimately got back. I mean, this yo-yo dieting or whatever behavior it is anyone wants to change. We get into spurts of doing things, and then something interrupts our pattern, and then we have to kind of reestablish it. So I think that it's really important to kind of think about, in the ideal situation, wouldn't it be perfect if we could just sever these ties completely and immediately, making it impossible to ever have a way back to whatever it is we were doing? Then can you imagine the power of this rubber band pulling you towards your desired outcome is going to what? What do you think is going to happen the moment I cut this band? What's going to happen to you?
Increase the momentum.
You're going to be flying towards that other,
Yeah, that's
obviously.
gonna be like AI. You're there.
Boom, there you are. And so I would suggest to you guys that while it is important to continue to stay focused on the prize, the truth is that no matter how thoroughly I flesh out my desired situation, no matter how much of an emotional attachment I form to it, no matter all those positives being in place, there is no guarantee I'm going to get to my desired outcome, because as we approach, I'll say this, successive approximations of the desired state. All right, so a row, a chain of little successes is actually reducing the level of tension, no matter how you try to defend against it or try to correct against it. You guys think I'm right, wrong? What would you have to do?
Mm-hmm.
And so my thought is that I need to concurrently eliminate bits and pieces of this old connection in order to help the movement go forward without so much drama in that movement, and without so much of a terrible loss I would likely go through or feel if these things, this old way of doing things, was simply removed from me once and for all. That's a
Right.
giant pattern interrupt.
Absolutely. That's why I like that. I don't know who came up with a quote or that frame, but it says manage the process, not the outcome.
Yeah, exactly.
So the ideal is you learn through the process, because any form of learning, right, the utility of it, the greatest utility of it is to reshape identities, reshape behaviors, to make things anew, not the same. So
right.
you, and that's a gradual process. Like it's it's dynamic in nature. It's not just one thing.
That's right. That's right. So what do you guys think happens if someone who's trying to who just got out of a rehab program for a drug issue ends up hanging out with the same people they hung out with before going into rehab?
Yep. The likelihood of going back is probably stronger.
Yeah. Now, interestingly enough, I'm okay with the word emotional in the example that we're using. There is some emotional attachment, but to me, it's not just emotional. There's also physical sorts of things.
Mhm.
I have yet to meet a drug addict that didn't say they didn't find the experience, initially at least, pleasurable. So there is that familiarity that comes from having that buzz going, or having, that the little, I want to say the intoxication, but that's inherently poisonous. But you get the idea. They got a buzz going one way or another. Well, you're saying to some people, you have to get rid of that forever. Or the people who realize that human beings are addicted to carbohydrates, and that truly you want to give up most, if not all of them. There's still this physical attachment to it. That hunger is a psychological part of it. It has physiological elements. It's a lot more than emotion that's going on, holding you back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that comes with any action we take. It's physiological and biological. I remember asking a patient about their experience with smoking for the first time.
Yep.
And the patient literally said, yeah, I vomited. I got, sick beyond. I said, well, what made you go back? Like, yeah, about 25-year history now, but what made you go back? And she said, well, the memory of being with friends and all these
Yep.
different kinds of things. And when we talk about limbic system, one of the processes in the limbic system, on top of the emotional processes, is it processes long-term memory in the hippocampus. So every part of, muscle memory, all these things, the feelings when we're doing certain events, all of that is recorded. And so, when you put yourself in a condition that created, precipitated the behavior, you can likely snap back, although you have this good intention to change something.
Right. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. So, I guess I just wanted to refresh your guys' memory on all this, because I want to look at Edie's question. And then, Edie, by the way, you're welcome to throw in any additional content to your question. But here's what it is. So, is it raising tension where we are motivated and take action to buy, sell, or whatever? So the rubber band, if I wanted to, I could certainly say that I could rotate this diagram some. Actually, lo and behold, the power of PowerPoint. Oh, except if we need to go this way. I would certainly say that I'm more upgrid about my desired situation and more downgrid about my current situation. So I do believe there is an element of tension management coming in to this whole thing. However, I'm going to make one other addition to that in a second. So I can certainly see that there is a little bit about, is it about being motivated to take action, raising the tension? I certainly can do that. Now, I'll explain why that is. Part of the reason why it is because my little diagram, can I rotate him again? Oh, no, now I'm moving him. Okay, come around, buddy. All right, I'm putting him across the heart line. I think it's almost more of a matter of drive. However, we have to look at the change grid to see where is it that change often occurs. It is true that ideally I'd like my change to occur while I'm on the heart line and I'm just moving further and further and further out grid. The motivation is all coming now from internal choice and intention, drive. I'm fully engaged. I'm executing it. I'm fully invested in what's going on. And so if I need to be motivated, persuaded, whatever, to do whatever, well, this would be the ideal place to be. But we don't live in an ideal world. The vast majority of people who are going to make any kind of a change are not going to make it while they're on the heart line. It's probably going to look a little bit more like, can I do this? Look a little bit more like this. And what I mean by that is that they need to have more attention to take action than the heart line, because what level of tension does someone take immediate definitive action?
The threshold.
The threshold. In order for us to be executing in that perfect situation when flow is ideal and the rubber bands are all horizontal, our heart line and our threshold of activation have to be one in the same line. We know that most people, most of the time, are making changes that are more influenced by something external that's coming into the picture. Remember, outgrid changes are driven by what kind of factors?
Internal.
Internal factors, and upgrade changes tend to be driven by external factors. And so maybe, just maybe, to get that person to do whatever it is that we want them to do, in Edie's example, change or buy or whatever, maybe, just maybe, I have to say they're not ready yet to be on the heart line. They're still in that developmental phase where we know that their threshold is higher than is serving them ideally. Nevertheless, we have to meet them where they are. And if their level of tension, or if their threshold is further upgrade, then what do I have to do?
Come up.
I have to move them upgrade. And when I think about, well, what is moving upgrade? The upgrade maneuvers: change the standard, or rather increase the standards, change the task, awaken emotions, boost accountability. I think awakening emotions is probably where motivating people would really come from, because motivation and emoting, all that go together.
Exactly.
Yeah. So could I be increasing some standards? Certainly, in the desired outcome that I am painting the picture of. I am talking about why these new standards have value. You know, why should you settle for where you're at and how you are? And so there is an element there of raising the standard. Changing the task is about, instead of using process A, use process B. Make it a little bit more of a game instead of as a task. Make it more of a social thing than an isolated sort of a thing. So there are things I could do to change the task that they might find more motivating. So, for example, I was talking with a client who simply needs more physical activity. And there's absolutely no way they're going to go to the gym. They simply won't spend the time doing it. They, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Nevertheless, this is a person who, in my personal experiences, is very often just dancing to music that's on in the background. And so I said, let's change the task. Forget the gym. Forget going on any exercise thing. Just dance the day away. Always have music on, always be dancing. Movement is what's important. And so that's changing a task. And I thought, well, by giving the client something to do that they already enjoy doing, there's kind of like a little bit of an endorphin or dopamine reward kind of built into it. So I could do that. So Edie, I don't know if that really answers your question, but yeah, there's a difference between looking at this as the ideal situation, and that is that we're just traveling around our heart line, versus may very well be the case. You know, who knows how far. And think about the workload that poor person stuck in the middle is enduring. When I go from level ground to, I'm sorry, it's an uphill battle. And how often have we heard that? Or they backslide. You know, now you can kind of see that there's a gravity involved in the whole thing, and moving towards your desired situation is movement against gravity. So if I get sever these lines, now they get catapulted, depending on the tension built into it.
I
All
like
right.
Do you
how you
remember
express that.
exactly how I worded that?
Yeah, here you go. Okay, so I was just thinking about the rubber band where tension to change takes us back, like losing weight and gaining it back, etc. Okay, yes. But is it raising tension where we are motivated and take action? And so my answer to your question is, I would say to you that while that is not the ideal we were talking about, that is the reality of most people, most days, most changes. We actually have to put energy into doing something that logic should have been able to drive. Yeah, and I'm just saying that because again, remember we said in your training on when we get to the levels of tension that there are two thresholds and one heart line. And so we'll almost always just talk about the threshold of activation, but anyone know the other one? The
I
threshold
don't remember.
it's the threshold of delegation. It's the level of tension at which we willingly relinquish control. We let go of something. We let go of something. So up here, threshold of activation is when I have sufficient tension that somehow my brain says, enough already, let's just do this. And, you know, you do whatever it is that needs to be done. Along the way to doing it, there's a whole lot of thinking about doing it. And maybe even a whole lot of intending to do it. Now I'm out here a little bit more, but if you really want to do it, you're either going to do it because the tension becomes so great, or if you're working with someone who's a tension management coach, if you will, a change works coach, we're trying to help you retrain your thresholds. So you don't need to wait until your level of tension has reached this unproductive kind of level before you'll finally do what you knew you needed to do long, long, long ago. And so the growth here is about retraining the threshold to lay coincidentally on top of the heart line.
You know,
I like
T,
the way
that
you
is
express that in terms of the upgrade, like moving someone up. I was just reading last week, I think it was, the relationship between play and productivity.
Okay,
Because
tell us.
what the research is talking about, how play creates the conditions for creativity to express itself. And so when people are stuck, you know, they introduce these different ways of getting out of this, I call it a state of stuckness, this SOS, by incorporating some kind of play into it. And that, you know, aligns with what you just described and those upgrade maneuvers.
That's an upgrade maneuver, yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it a shame that you have to do that? Wouldn't it be more functional if we could just say, hey, just you've decided what you're going to do, just go do it.
Right.
Go do it. It's like, you know.
But it explains too what you were just talking about earlier. Like that's a fun way, if you will, or more useful way to tether, you know, the attachment to the front part of that rubber band.
Well,
because otherwise you're always in this fight or flight kind of, you know, sympathetic reaction state because you're battling between two.
Yeah, well, and we do describe the outcome on the right as the desired outcome. So that desire element has to be maintained. You know? So I can be highly motivated to have a slice of pecan pie. I promise you, by the time I've eaten half the pie, my desire for pie goes down. So even basic economic theory is going to map to this. So it's just this interplay. But we take things a step further and say, well, the interplay isn't necessarily horizontal. It isn't isolated. It gets blended in with a whole lot of other dynamics that are going on in a human. And maybe, just maybe, this is what we're looking at. Now, one last thing I'd like to throw in on this particular subject is, actually two, I want to finish the threshold of delegation. You guys have met plenty of clients and maybe you know plenty of people in your own life. Maybe you're one of them that tends to hang on to things long after you should have let go. So things that should have been delegated, should have been assigned, whatever. You know, you just say you're going to do it, you intend to do it, but the intention ends up slipping down grid, and then it ends up becoming even a downgrade awareness. Oh yeah, it's still on the to-do list. You get the idea. If you want to get some stuff done, that threshold of delegation needs to be coincidental with a hard line, because sometimes getting things done means I do it, but more often than not, getting things done mean I influence others to do it. And on the downgrade side of things, I'm influencing more systems development, routines, practices. You know, skills are very strong down here. This is where mastery and perfection are going to occur. But sometimes I really have to get people energized and motivated. So I need um, I need to do whatever the situation at hand requires. And that's either do it, stimulate others to do it, or myself to do it, unfortunately. And maybe I need to let go of things as well. That's where we come in, by the way, as coaches and development professionals. We're trying to say, you've been hanging, like, how many of you ever worked with family-owned businesses?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Family-owned businesses, one of their biggest problems is mom and dad won't let go. And so brother and sister have not had any real opportunity to run the place. And so, you know, this is a real strange thing where we got to talk mom and dad into letting go so we can talk the kids into stepping up. You know? So
Mhm.
it's the way that it is. It's the way that it is. The other thing that I wanted to just bring into the discussion here is, you know, I think most of you know that I'm writing a science fiction story. And in part of the story, there are two different groups of humans. And these two different groups of humans are trying to accomplish different things. And long story, you'll have to buy the book. But who knows when, if that'll ever happen. But nevertheless, I still write. And so this one group of people experience very little emotion. Whenever they do something, they've disciplined themselves through cultural, what to say, generations to just figure out what needs to be done and follow through and simply get the matter done. They don't need to be motivated to do it. They simply are motivated to do it. And motivation might not even be the right word, because they don't need that. They have simply chosen to do it. And so people thought that I've run that by, thought that sounded very sterile, very logic oriented, commander data. But I want to bring to your attention that you be that group of people who live their life on the heart line. So whose thresholds of activation and thresholds of delegation are coincidental with the heart line. So there it is, all concurrent. And they start to move a little bit out grid, where now they have a solid awareness of something that they could be doing. Again, it's an out grid awareness along the heart line. So they're aware of either an opportunity, a need, something that could be done right away. Do you think they're going to look, maybe I'll just ask the question, how are they going to look, carry themselves, behave, compared to someone who now has formulated a strong intention to do something about it, who's now out here actively engaged in doing it, who's out here executing on the plan? Do you think their facial expressions might be different? What do you think? Do you think that
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, tell me about that. Why does someone who's out here at 10-10 have a very different facial expression than someone at 7-7? They're both logically ruled. Hmm.
They just have a basic awareness of it. They have no intention.
Right, but now if we move further out grid, now they've got the intention. What happens to the looks on their faces? What happens when you start to proceed along a path of your own choosing, under your own propulsion?
Mhm.
What's really going on here? Let's see. Tim's chatting over to everyone again. Tim, always feel free to unmute. Does the model imply emotional energy is powerless and unworthy? Sorry, can't unmute. Okay, just boarded your flight. Okay, because we're going to talk about Eisenhower too. That's our second topic. So I'm glad you are able to fit us in before your flight. Okay.
I think the 10-10 would be intense.
Mm-hmm.
Eyes are intense, and well, I think the voice is just more intense than 7-7.
Yep. The emotions we're encountering here are pride and confidence. And so if you guys were looking at somebody face to face with them, and they're at 10-10, where they are very confident, very proud, they know exactly, but they're intense, make no mistake about it. Maybe not like at 11, 11, 12, 12, but there's a very strong, you look at the intensity rings, they're at a 6-degree intensity. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think? You think I'm just going to look the same way I look when I'm at the center of the change grid?
No, more determined.
More determined, being confident, being proud has a facial expression to it, which is very different than being flat or detached like the center of the change grid. I am developing a certain level of attachment as I move out grid. Detachment is at the center, but I'm attaching to my goal, my inspiration, my efforts, my work, my whatever. That feeling of pride comes across in the way your eyes might be twinkling, or in the way that your face might have just that slight bit of smile, because you're on your game. You're doing well here. You're doing well here. And so I did get a note from somebody who was just talking about that. Who wants to live on the heart line? You're just going to be a robot. And no, I think the robotic issue is something we get concerned about as someone moves further down grid. Yep. You guys think about that? And again, I think
Yeah.
the rings explain it. This is all engaged by our little diagram. You can't be engaged unless you're out grid. So you can be intending on getting engaged, but you can't be engaged unless you're really out grid. So that I think is the dynamic that's going on to Edie's point there. Yeah. So yeah.
Maybe a great deal of confidence as well.
Very confident, very proactive, very sure of themselves, very, all the positive things that happen as far out as being an amiable, driven driver. You get out here a driven driver, and I think that facial expression is probably going to change to something that is, you guys use the words intense and determined, focused, but because there's danger out here, we're in a danger zone. And they might feel they're in danger because the competition is pushing just as hard as they are. There are threats in the environment. And so I can certainly see how that little smile that's on my face might give rise to a bit of a furrowed brow. And then if I get this far out grid, a driven driver, well, now watch out. Watch out. So yeah. Okay. Now again, going back to my little science fiction story, the other planet is far more similar to Earth. In order for anything to get done, I mean anything, there always has to be this dose of motivation that gets added to it. There always has to be, beyond the logic being fully in place, there has to be these upgrade maneuvers, increasing standards, changing tasks, awakening emotions, boosting accountability. Which of those two cultures do you think is more likely to get more done?
One you just described.
What? Why would you say that? Go ahead.
Because they're always challenging themselves, it seems like, or they're.
Mhm.
I think what I'm hearing at least is like, I look at our time today, seems like there's lower thresholds, and so this idea of dealing with uncertainties, complexity, ambiguity,
Mhm.
all those things, it's saying people don't know how to deal with that anymore. And so the only or the default reaction today is these extreme behaviors. There's no like, oh, well, let's
Mm,
critically think this thing through. Like,
yeah.
let's
Yeah.
raise the bar on our thinking on something on our part. So that's what I think. That's what I'm comes to mind
Right.
as I heard that. That's why I said those that are continually challenging themselves. Because this
Right. Do you
status
think,
quo, we're
think that
designed for that.
right, but do you think there are more people out there that are fully able to manage their own level of tension? That's always the driving force of their own life, that's that no one's going to stop them, go get her, blah. Do you think?
No, no,
No. The
no.
majority of people are either too far down grid and we have to raise their tension to get any productivity out of them. Or even if they're not too far down grid, unfortunately, their threshold is even further up grid. So
Mm,
I have to now go and get them down grid, move them way up grid, in the hope of getting something that would have been out grid if they would just have followed through on their agreement when they got employment to do what it is that they were asked to do. But I don't remember the statistic, but you guys know there's plenty of studies about what is the actual level of productivity in the
mm.
average American worker. When they put in 8 hours on the clock, how many of those 8 hours were actually spent working as efficiently, elegantly as they could be doing, which again would be that heartline flow experience.
Oh, it's low. It's very low.
It's criminally low. And so that's why I'm saying, look, if I'm trying to describe the difference between these two cultures that happen to live on two different planets, but that's a different story. So one of them is very much a decision is made and everyone figures out the right team for it. They join together, they put together their plan, they execute their plan. Everyone's having a good time. Everyone's getting along with everybody else. They're there for a focus. And by the way, at the end of their work day, work is over. But they
Right.
this same way of approaching life into other areas of their life as well. So they're filling their lives with experiences that bring them some sort of growth or something or another. Get the idea?
Right. So now
Versus,
I retract. I retract.
thank you. Versus this group of people who are kind of going like, I'm here, but it's your job to motivate me. It's your job to manage me. It's your job to get what I agreed to give you.
Mm,
So yeah, so obviously there's so much inefficiency in all this. If nothing else, think about the person power involved in policing your behavior, managing everybody else. They could have just been doers and help us get this job done. So why are we working 8 hours if we could get this done in 6? You know? So
And interestingly, T, I think there is a prevalent conditioning that describes exactly what you just talked about. Because think about what people's expectations of the government to resolve certain things, and then if you look at the way corporations traditionally have been designed, it's not to free one to think on their own
no,
and
no,
to
no,
do
no,
it,
no.
right? You come
Right.
from the Industrial Revolution, so you do what you're
Yeah.
told to do in this 9 to 5 paradigm.
And
So,
I would add to that it's more than just kind of like a cultural sort of thing that creeps in, but there's actually institutions that ensure that the working public is going to be kept as far down as
absolutely.
possible.
Even healthcare, right? So you're conditioned to
Healthcare,
go to a professional to tell you
mm,
about your body, although you're the one experiencing it.
right. And so when you think about whether it's governmental services that move people down grid, but it could also be something like the existence of a union. You think a
Hmm.
union is out there telling its employees to go above and beyond what's been agreed to in the contract?
Oh no, no.
No, we renegotiate for that. So we've negotiated a certain level of performance, and that's what you're going to deliver. If you deliver more than that, the union's going to have issues with you. And on and on. And by the way, it's not just that. If we go to our post secondary educational system, is it really encouraging you to be a free spirit, a free thinker, or is it basically putting you through 4 years of conditioning?
Yeah, definitely.
I
4
mean, I
years of
like
conditioning.
yeah, fine, they'll throw a course or two, and maybe there's a few institutions that really are about helping you develop your critical thinking and all that. I'm sure they're out there, but I don't think they represent mainstream post-secondary education in the U.S.
Yeah.
It's all an exercise in compliance. And I can't tell you how many people that we've worked with over the years that have multiple degrees, advanced degrees, who find it who find themselves unable to go beyond the academic definition of
Mhm.
whatever truth happens to be. So it's just an interesting kind of a dynamic to look at whatever we've been trained in or conditioned by. That seems to be how we're going to operate from that point forward. So what if we just had a whole bunch of people who actually knew how to make solid choices, were ready to meet all the challenges, and just did what they decided to do, and you chose to do, and they chose to be what you wanted them to do, and everyone's having a good old time. I mean, that would be fine. Has anyone ever experienced that?
Mhm.
I
I
mean,
look forward to the book.
yeah, well, there it is. There it really is. I think we've had moments of that, and we might have had some experiences where we were able to be on that perfect team at that perfect moment, doing this perfect kind of a thing. But I would say too that those are, far too few and far between, right? Right. Okay.
It is a crisis. I'm just put together a talk on the decrease in workplace productivity. It's down 2.7%, which is the biggest drop in 75 years and falling. It's a crisis. It really is.
It's interesting how you go, it's a crisis and a lot in many, many ways. But I was reading something that said like maybe it's more of a cultural crisis. Oh no, it's what we're talking about on the circle calls. We're talking about American values, and that Americans have this value of whatever, that you have to fill every single moment of every single day with something productive. And I know there's a lot of other cultures out there, or nationalities, that would probably resonate with that mindset. But then I think, something like COVID comes along, which in the world of NLP would be referred to as a gross pattern interrupt. Um, when a gross pattern interrupt occurs, then it's like overnight. Changes that would have taken forever, if ever, are suddenly in place and are the new norm. And so you guys remember before COVID, how many clients you had that would never even talk about the possibility of doing the work remotely? Using things like Zoom, and Zoom had plenty of predecessors. So, but suddenly COVID comes along and it's like, you have no choice. The boat has been burned. We have cut the rubber band. So,
Yeah. But there were so many challenges with productivity even before COVID, because even
yep.
like Harvard had coined presenteeism, exact
Mhm.
opposite of absenteeism, but they said presenteeism
Yeah.
because of
Sure was.
distraction, diversions, all those kinds of things that people, it's cost an organization spends billions of dollars for
Exactly.
people to show up at it.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yep.
they're checked in at work, signed in, whatever, but they're not present.
Yep, yep, yep. And I get it, a great many jobs really do require people to be physically there. I mean, Linda just got out of the hospital. I don't think you want a nurse who's phoning in. So,
Right.
So T, it looks like the rubber bands got reversed.
yeah. You know the phrase, sometimes what's old is new again.
Mm,
Do you think that's what you're thinking about, David?
Yes.
They get reversed. It's kind of like we realize the old way of doing things was not so bad, people.
mhm.
I'm okay with some new things, but why should I have to get into a car, drive somewhere, waste gasoline, pollute things, waste money, when the truth is I can be in my home with my family, making better use of our resources and all that by staying, maybe you realize that was too big of a price to be paid over the evolution of our value of our
Mhm.
values, about productivity. Maybe that's the right things to do. And certainly, I've been blessed with the opportunity to not only visit all sorts of countries, but to actually work with people inside of those countries. So I had ample opportunity to hear about their culture from their perspective. I'm not just a tourist showing up and, maybe chatting to a few, people here or there. So I learned very quickly on the road that we are simply one way of doing things, and not everybody wishes they were us. So,
Mhm.
somewhere in that list of values, arrogance is going to come up. But, we'll talk about that later. But yeah. Maybe just maybe everything. Okay, remember that or I'll give you a little bit more from NLP, the basic teachings in NLP. One of them is that if you want someone to change their behavior, that behavior is more likely to happen if the new way of behaving protects all of the benefits of the old way of behaving. Now that's really simple. That means all I'm doing is adding to something someone is already comfortable with. Is it easy to let go of the past if you get to bring every bit of the past with you? So yeah, and so that's their big deal. You've got to make sure that whatever you're advocating protects all of the biggest benefits that person felt they had in the old way of doing things. And so, yeah, you want to bring them back to work now, and you want to offer them, I don't know, all the crazy things they're offering, but 3 meals a day and childcare and whatever, all these kinds of things, all to get you to show up at some building that's, far more often than not, bigger than anything needs to be to get the work actually done.
Right. So it becomes an all or nothing kind of thing. And that's that difference between, you can have both and as opposed to just either or. And now I don't think, too many people think about that. So that's why I think people don't deal with change in the most effective way.
Well, and let's add another slide into this discussion that actually is in the deck that we're going through all the way at the beginning. Where did we put it? Here it is, our little matrix. Keep in mind that if you want this, so this is your desired situation. If you think about it, I don't want to gain this, I don't want to lose this. These are the things that are messing with your current situation, right? I don't want to gain something. I got enough, thanks. I don't want to lose something. I like what I have, This is the current situation, but I do want to gain this and I do want to lose that. Well, we very often say that this is the price that must be paid in order to get what's up here. Now, you don't have to get rid of everything and gain everything, but there's a price to be paid for a change to occur. And that is letting go of some things. So going back to this idea that if you want the change to occur, as far as X is really concerned, it has to end up giving me a net gain in control, or a neutral situation. And even then, I don't think they're likely to change, because if it ends up being a net loss of control, what do you think is going to happen? Change or no change?
No change.
No change. So lots of diagrams that we can all merge and see how they all go together. Oh, let's see. Tim is saying productivity decline. Is that manufacturing, services, all sectors? I would say, Tim, no. I'll bet you we could find that there are several industries that thrive in this kind of an environment. And the people that are attracted to those industries are looking for exactly that kind of thing. When I think about all the amazing advancements that are happening in AI and how quickly they are happening, why do I suspect there's a lot of people who love what they're doing? Right? So that's what's really, I don't know that I need to throw them meals. Maybe I'm just throwing them meals because I'm concerned if I don't, they're not going to eat. So it's like, I'm glad you're doing great stuff and having a great time doing it, but when was the last time you slept? So there are some industries, I think, that are okay, but you're right. I think there's all kinds of examples we could come up for manufacturing. Certainly a lot of other kinds of services. Like one of the things that was in today's little local newspaper was that everyone is upset about self-service checkout lanes. Our local grocery store, our local Kroger is Fry's. And so I think Kroger is still one of, if not the largest grocery store in the country. But nevertheless, they're putting in more of these self-checkout machines. And people have got their underwear in a bunch about it. And so I said to them, well, have you ever gone recently to one of these stores with the self-checkout lanes? And you tell me how long you've had to wait for one to be free. It's getting crowded in the world of self-checkout. And it's not because they don't have staff stations. You could go to the staff station if you want. Why do you want to go to the self-checkout? And then people say, it's faster. Well, it's faster till you bring a whole grocery cart into the whole thing.
Exactly.
But now
Exactly.
they've added, Kroger stores have now added a full, like with a conveyor belt sort of a thing where you can still check yourself out, but you're basically being your own full-fledged cashier with that fully capable checkout lane all under your own personal control. So they're going like, yeah, but people are losing their jobs, losing their jobs. Well, they may not have so many jobs for cashiers anymore, but how many of you, as you've gone grocery shopping, have noticed how many stores are now doing delivery service of groceries and how many people there are running all over that store, filling all of these phoned in or interneted in orders, right?
Mhm.
Yep, lots of them.
Those are all new jobs.
Right.
Those are
Right.
all new jobs. And so I don't really know that. I know that a lot of places have got staffing problems. I get that. But I don't think that this particular change is going to do that. Now, I could take some time and show you how that's all playing itself out on this 4 aspects of control. But you kind of see that if we can say to these people who are concerned about job loss, that we say, oh no, they're actually going to get a different job inside of the same company that's got maybe even more compensation associated with it. I mean,
Absolutely. Because
because
someone
really,
has to regulate those machines, right? So the
well, they have to
machines have to
regulate
be
those machines.
regulated, they have the money, there's all different kinds of things that go into that. So it's not like the machine just run itself.
Yep. And someone really described it well to me. They said that the difference is that instead of us as a shopper bringing our groceries to the cashier is going and getting our groceries for us and then putting them in the car. So,
Mhm.
the way you look at it really is just a rearrangement of opportunities for people. And so there it is. But people were so concerned. I don't want to lose blah, blah, blah. I don't want more work. I've already paid for the groceries. Why should I check out myself? You don't have to, you chose to, right? You could have
Mhm.
gone to a regular checkout line if you wanted. I don't want to whatever. All right, so that's my whole point. It's this pull between the old way of doing things and the new way of doing things. I became very much a proponent of self-checkout during COVID because I didn't want all my stuff touched by another person. So the
Mhm.
fewer people that touched my stuff, the happier I was. Thank you. I'll check myself out. So, all right.
Well, ours have actually quit the checkout. Everything's in red and you can't get to it anymore.
You
Mm.
can't, there's no live checkout counters.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Self-checkout
Oh, they've
counters.
closed them all down.
Yeah, because people
Wow.
were cheating and I don't know.
Yeah, I guess there is kind of a theft sort of a thing that's happening, but fine.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Amazon did it as well because when they purchased Whole Foods, they changed the whole experience. And so
yes.
in the Washington, D.C. area, there were 8 stores, literally Whole Foods, that were cashierless. So they just had people standing there at the front, and then they have like the gates, like you walk through the airport to make sure
Right.
people
Yeah.
don't walk up. So people said I felt like I went to a shopping experience like I was in a cage.
Well,
So they closed all the stores.
yep. And so again, it's always going to be tension management. How far can I push a consumer before I push too far? I got to
Mhm.
find that little sweet spot. And again, we're business consultants, right? If someone came to us and they said, how can I simultaneously reduce my expenses, protect my inventory, and keep my customers happy? This is the kind of advice we'd be giving them. What do you think you can give up that they're used to? What can you give them that they're not used to? And is that going to be well received or not so well received?
That's something they should be actually talking with customers about because
Well, they
oftentimes
do.
these designs are
Yeah.
just like simple surveys. They're not really interacting with
No,
people.
well, but Brian, in all fairness to that, these larger corporations, I suspect they've done focus groups, surveying. I mean, they know what we do. When they see there's a crowd of people in the self-checkout lines, what message are we giving them as consumers? We want more of that. So,
Right.
right. There's they're looking at the number of products that are being sold per order more. Can you just think about the the data that your grocery store has on you, unless you are walking in without scanning your frequent shopper card and paying only in cash, they probably are still learning from you just by watching you as you roam around the store.
Mhm.
And then they feed it all to AI, who tells them that, we got to do what we got to do. Okay, well, we're at 5 minutes before the hour. I just wanted to do one more thing. This is pretty much setting the stage for tomorrow's call, but I do want to show you one more thing about this. Edie, I do hope that answered your question.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, yeah. All right. But Tim sent over something. Tim's probably on his flight by now, but he still looks like he's logged in. So there goes. He sent over the Eisenhower matrix. I've always had a special fondness for Eisenhower. I was named after him. So one of my middle names is Dwight. And so, yeah, so never studied the man, but obviously, he's done some really great things. So what is important is seldom urgent. What is urgent is seldom important. I honestly thought this urgent and important thing was Stephen Covey. So come to find out, oh no, predates Stephen. Well, actually, I don't know. Are Stephen Covey and Dwight Eisenhower contemporaries in any way? No.
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 So I think it came from Eisenhower, and Covey kind of glommed onto it and put it forth as one of his little tools. And a lot of other people use this as well. We even use it when we're doing activity list development for larger kind of concerns. We're actually trying to map out what's a whole team of people going to be doing. Well, you really can make all kinds of lists inside of each one of these. So we got to do X. Is that important or not important? Is it urgent or not urgent? Where is it in the matrix? And yeah, they're using 4 quadrants because everyone uses 4 quadrants. You know us, we'd be plotting at the exact coordinate pair wherever this overlays. But this is going to be your puzzle question. The 2 axes that are used to form the Eisenhower matrix are one about urgency and one about importance. So if I said to you, this is not going to overlay on the change grid, but it is going to overlay on one of the planes of the change cube. Remember, the change cube has 6 different planes, right? Because the cube has got 6 sides, but then there's a horizontal plane that runs through the heart line. So that's one other thing we can look at, because our perceptions give rise to our perceived level of drive and our perceived level of tension. I think we can make an easy overlay between urgency and tension. And importance is already that third the z-axis. So the question for you guys is going to be, does urgency parallel? No. Where does urgency end up positioning itself inside of the plane?
Tension.
Yeah, it's going to be tension versus importance. Tension versus importance. So the more urgent it is, the more tension there's going to be, non-urgent, low tension. We could also, for the fun of it though, map it towards drive and see how that works, because maybe there's an element of urgency when we think about drive. By the way, that's what we're going to look at and see where is the sweet spot. Where is the sweet spot? So that's what we're going to talk about, the Eisenhower matrix. That's up for tomorrow and probably Thursday as well. So any comments, questions, thoughts?
Good stuff.
We'll get back to the Oracle of the Stealth Official. In fact, I'm probably going to put today's call up as a Circle of Brilliance call. I don't know. I'll figure out where it goes. But we didn't do anything as far as the nature of change. So maybe we did. Oh, who knows? All right. Thanks, everybody. I'll go find my mind now.
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Everybody have a great day. Thanks.